the secret history of the shadow campaign that saved the 2020 election. Oh my God.
When I initially saw this, it was in screen cap form, and I did not believe that it was a real article. Like, I genuinely didn't believe it was real. I had to have multiple people like validate through sources that this was indeed a real-time article. Even after I saw the website link, I was like, no, I reject this. This is not real.
Basically, this thing sets up this narrative in which nothing happened after the election, which, by the way, is in contradiction to the whole AOC thing that we're dealing with right now. But they set up this idea that everyone accepted the result, except, of course, Donald Trump, who said within days after the election, it was all very, very strange. We witnessed an orchestrated effort to anoint the winner while many key states were still being counted. It spends all this time setting this up as though this is like, oh, look at Trump, this dumb asshole. Nobody thinks that. Nobody. And then they go, in a way, Trump was right. And then they go on to detail an actual conspiracy, which this is the next sentence. There was a conspiracy unfolding behind the scenes, one that both curtailed the protests and coordinated the resistance from CEOs.
It gets worse, by the way.
Oh, it gets much worse.
It gets so much worse. Both sides would come to see it as a sort of implicit bargain, inspired by the summer's massive, sometimes destructive, racial justice protests, in which the forces of labor came together with the forces of capital to keep peace and oppose Trump's assault on democracy. They cease to be those things if they come together.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. That is exactly the truth. You cannot... The moment that labor aligns with capital, when they begin to work together, it's simply capital.
I love that self-identifying moment that they refer to the racial protests as destructive.
Sometimes destructive.
Like, fuck you. You don't care about any of this. If you're gonna frame those protests as anything but like for a worthy cause of racial inequity, go fuck yourself.
People literally saw somebody get killed and rioted over it. Like, who the fuck cares whether it's destructive or not? Like, there's a reason why.
Well, it's not destructive. If we're talking about a cost-benefit analysis from a public health perspective, we literally have a police state that disproportionately kills Black lives.
Yeah.
That's destructive. Yeah. And to rail against that in any way is counter-destructive and reconstructive.
Yeah. And then it continues to characterize the handshake between business and labor was just one component of a vast cross-partisan campaign to protect the election. An extraordinary shadow effort dedicated not to winning the vote, but to ensuring it would be free and fair, credible and uncorrupted. For more than a year, a loosely organized coalition of operatives scrambled to shore up America's institutions, which, as you know, is something that labor is so known for doing, which is shoring up America's institutions.
Yeah.
Just 100% what labor's for.
Okay, this is great. You know what? You might be saying this the whole fucking time because it's not great. It's just so... It's vindicating. I love this part that says, though much of this activity took place on the left, it was separate from the Biden campaign and crossed ideological lines, with crucial contributions by nonpartisan and conservative actors. So here they're talking about a joining between labor and capital, and they're also conflating those sides with the sides of the ideological wings of capitalism and acting like those are parallel divisions.
Also, I just want to point out that they worked with fascists. We want to de-radicalize people out of those programs, and they tell us that we are working with fascists. Meantime,
to get Biden elected,
they work with major conservative platforms, organizations, and yes, capital itself. And they call us fascists for wanting to get people out of that fucking paradigm.
There's a fascist in Time Magazine.
Champ. I don't know. that part.
That's a really good point, though. I mean, like, now that this is not antagonistic to capital and getting Biden elected, it's like being praised as this like monumental thing. Whereas applying the same paradigm of logic to, you know, antagonizing hegemonic systems, racial and economic hierarchy, then it is bad, and you are working with fascists.
Yeah, exactly. When you're antagonistic to capital and you want to de-radicalize those people, so you think that it's important to talk to them and treat them like human beings, that's when you're working with fascists. That's when it's a red-brown alliance. That's when it's Strasserism. That's when you're a class reductionist.
They're really playing on that thing too, the red-brown alliance.
That red-brown shit is so fucking stupid.
I've been accused of that too, and like my whole thing is on racial inequity and chronic illness. It's just like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
What the fuck is that?
So the thing we have to talk about here is that they basically openly admitted to using these large organizations and capital, just money, moving it all in favor of weaponizing anything that is visual and influencing against a certain result. And no, I'm not saying that Trump should be in the White House. Biden won. Biden's the president. Don't think that that's what you're going to get out of this. I'm sorry, but Stop the Steal it's the same exact thing, but from the right. Yeah. It's these huge organizations moving everyday people to a place that they want action to happen and generating spectacle that they can benefit off of, which ultimately these are people who are connected to Silicon Valley, which ultimately has the whole surveillance capitalism thing going, which is benefited by laws being passed in favor of surveilling people more, the domestic terrorism laws that we brought up before, et cetera, et cetera. There's interconnected interests here at play. I think that's as much horse shit as I do this. But this, when we say people in the media descend on you for not using your gifted and trusted platform to promote Biden and attempt to influence people towards voting for Biden and not articulating real criticism about Biden, instead being, he's not the best, but we need to vote for him. I'm going to eat kitchen tiles if you don't vote for him. If you're articulating real criticism of Joe Biden during the election, you'll be attacked. And who will you be attacked by? Well, during the course of the election, I was pointing out repeatedly that it was people who were claiming to be leftists months prior. Suddenly, they took this big fucking heel turn where the most important thing in the whole goddamn world was voting for Joe Biden. Never mind the fact that it was counter to every single thing that any quote-unquote radical will tell you, that electoral politics is not the path to systemic change. It is at most harm reduction, which is, by the way, an excuse that was used a lot. Harm reduction. In a way that was never defined as and never operationalized, and just a way that you could throw it around to demonize people who are not. So during the course of this, things like Jacobin, things like Democratic Socialists of America, were increasingly sort of displaying that same paradigm as I was being critical of in BreadTube, which was this supposedly radical faction of YouTubers, which was now like, Biden wasn't my first choice, but you got to vote for him or otherwise I'll have suicidal ideation, or whatever the fuck that video was about. More than 150 liberal groups, from the Women's March to the Sierra Club to Color of Change, from Democrats.com to the Democratic Socialists of America, joined the Protect the Results Coalition. The group's now defunct website, which I can't imagine why they would remove the website for this. The group's now defunct website had a map listing 400 planned post-election demonstrations, which should tell you the kind of money that they had to organize over 400 demonstrations to be activated via text message, meaning they had the apparatus to be text messaging enough people, meaning the serious money going, like, you don't understand the kind of money that goes into these back ends to text these types of people. When I did texting for Bernie, which I did, by the way, I sent out over 28,000 text messages on Bernie Sanders' campaign's behalf. It's all powered by software, which people operate. It's also expensive to send out the text messages. To stop the coup they feared, The left was ready to flood the streets. The left.
Who the fuck is that in this article? They say liberal organizations and then they say the left, which is just so.
Well, I mean, the Democratic Socialists of America is very obviously something that people consider to be the left. They were literally a part of this coalition who is dedicated to stamping out any minor criticism, like any real criticism of Joe Biden during the course of the election. This is a co-opted left. It is not a left which is ideologically operating off of Marxist critique or even something adjacent to that. It is something that is operating off of influencers and organizations with power, put out narratives which influence people to act in a certain way. And that is what the left is. That's the left that you see every fucking day. So anyway, to wrap up the Times article, it's literally just a thing that says, hey, we manufactured consent. Here's a bunch of people that we specifically talked to about manufacturing consent and did it along with us. It was great. We worked. It saved democracy when we literally changed the information landscape.
We literally did a not democracy by doing that.
Here's the thing too. Anybody who equates the market to democracy should be wary when they see things like this, because this is what the market enables. If you've got the money, you can change reality itself. And they did. If you think that it's democratic or that you're saving democracy by spending tons of money to influence people, that's not democracy. Democracy requires a material analysis. In order for people to have an informed position, in order to make the best choices, we can't have capital owning the information economy. It's just not something that is allowable if we want democracy, meaning the market itself is a problem in terms of a democratic situation. Thanks for joining us for Pact. P is for Peter, that is me. This is Miss Astronaut Cowboy Doctor, that's ACD. If you're interested in supporting us, thumbs up the video and check out the links in the description. We archive these full streams for patrons, so become one today at patreon.com/PeterCoffin. And we stream every week, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Friday. Thank you so much for joining us.